Bonjour and bienvenue, la Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. Je m'appelle Ryan Mckern. And on this beautiful October night, the wind is rolling in, the temperature is dropping, and it's feeling more and more like Halloween time. Getting nostalgic in tonight's episode as I'm reminded of memories of costume shopping at the local drugstore back when that was the thing. You used to go to the drugstore and the pharmacy would have those costumes that seemed amazing as a kid, although they're really cheap and flimsy, impractical these days. But they would be the package with the see-through front so you could see the mask. It was this plastic mask with the rubber binder type of string to hold it together. It'd always pinch your skin and be too tight. It would break most of the time. And then usually a costume made out of some cheap plastic or metal. Getting the Dracula costume is always my favorite. Dracula was and still is a big hero of mine. Shout out Bela Lugosi. Rest in peace. You used to go to the pharmacy, you could get your candy, you'd get your costume, and they used to rent VHSs back then too. I would always be in the horror section, even as a young kid. And that's pretty much where I went to every time I went to the video store, until video stores became obsolete. I think the last time I was able to go into a Blockbuster was 2011. Right before it closed down in Mandeville, Louisiana. And, of course, the Blockbuster on Magazine Street in Uptown, New Orleans. But tonight we will discuss the history of Halloween. Perhaps the history of Halloween costumes and celebration. There's a place called Anoka, Minnesota. There's a place in Minnesota called Anoka that states they are the first town to create the Halloween celebration. So join me, sit back in the proverbial darkness, my friend, and welcome to the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. The history of Anoka, Halloween capital of the world. Anoka, Minnesota is believed to be the first city in the United States to put on a Halloween celebration to divert its youngsters from Halloween pranks. When Anokans awoke to find their cows roaming Main Street, which and outhouses tipped over, they decided something had to be done. But what? A costume parade and block parties seemed like the perfect trick. Halloween became a wonderful distraction for our hometown for generations to come. And they wouldn't have it any other way. The crisp of the season, the creativity of the shops, the schools, the costumes, the laughter, the food, the fun, and the parties. There are so many reasons to love the month of October. The Anoka Halloween timeline. 1920. In 1920, George Green, another Anoka civic leader, suggested the idea of a giant celebration. The idea was adopted by the Anoka Commercial Club and the Anoka Kiwanis Club, both giving their support. In September of that year, a Halloween committee was organized. Working hand in hand were businessmen, teachers from the Anoka Public and Parocho schools, parents, and students. For weeks before the big event, more than 1,000 Anoka school children made plans and costumes for the big event. A parade was scheduled for the evening. Participants included local and neighboring bands, drum corps, the Anoka Police and Fire Departments, the Kiwani Club, the Commercial Club, and the Anoka National Guard, all working together to make the evening a success. Afterward, hundreds of bags of popcorn and other treats were given away to the children who marched in the parade. And everyone was invited to a large bonfire that was staged at Bridge Square. Celebrations have been held every year since 1920, with the exception of 1942 and 1943, when the festivities were canceled because of World War II. 1937. By the 1930s, the festivities had expanded. At the attendance at the parades, there were over 2,000 costumed children marching down Main Street. It was estimated that 20,000 spectators lined the streets to watch the nighttime spectacle. In 1937, 12-year-old Harold Blair, donning a sweater embellished with a Halloween capital insignia, carried with him to Washington, D.C., a proclamation naming Anoka Halloween Capital of the World. In 1960, Anoka has always worked to keep a family spirit alive in its Halloween festivities. Activities have included pillow fights, a kangaroo court, fireworks, royalty coronations, concerts, dances, window painting contests, house decorating contests, celebrity appearances, costume contests, style shows, storytelling, races, and in the 1960s, a snake dance that took long lines of participants in and out of the area, businesses, and homes. 1968 marks the first year that Miss Anoka joined the Anoka Halloween Capital of the World. By the 1970s, the winners of the TV game show, The Dating Game, were awarded with a trip to Anoka to ride in the Halloween parade. Today, the tradition lives on. Anoka Halloween Capital of the World. The celebration continues to the world class. Participation in the night parade and Grand Day parade has grown to include units from all over the Midwest. The original concept of having costume students parade down Main Street continues on as well on Friday preceding the Grand Day parade. Anoka residents can watch their grandchildren or great-grandchildren continue the tradition they started so many years ago. There is awards given, the float winners, and costumes in many different subcategories for the Anoka County fairs, both the Grand Day Parade and the Lights at Night. Be aware for some rules, Grand Day and Light Up the Night Parade are a lottery system. Applications available, and the deadline for 2024 was September 22nd. There will be no gore, blood, or violent Halloween themes showed, as it is a kid-friendly parade. No political groups or political campaigning allowed. No RVs, buses, traditional cars, or trucks. Walking groups are limited to 25 people. Float length. If you would like some information on the parade itself as far as times and location, go to AnokaHalloween.com. Another tradition is the Anoka Princess Crown, worn by Karen George, 1979 to 1980. Karen was chosen as one of the 3 Anoka Halloween royalty in the fall of 1979 and wore the crown at the many events she attended during the following year. It is a rhinestone crown with varying sizes of rhinestones that rises to a point at the front. Standing 2.5 inches high in the middle, 2 metal combs were attached, one at the back each of the crown's band, but both have since come off. Glue residue remains on both the combs and the crown band itself. 1941 Anoka Halloween wooden pinback buttons, painted orange, with black and white owls and bats, were assembled. Horse-drawn carriages and buggies, 3R Ranch children, and cowboy hats are shown in the picture in the 1953 Halloween parade in Anoka County. In the museum collection, although we have many Anoka County artifacts at the museum, we don't have everything. A longtime member of Anoka Halloween and avid collector of related memorabilia, Pat Miner, was excited to help make this year's 100th anniversary exhibit stand out. He generously loaned the items pictured in this video from his personal collection. Enjoy these Anoka Halloween artifacts. Many of them are one of a kind. The Anoka County Historical Society would like to thank Pat Miner for the loan of all his items that you see in the museum. Theme buttons have been a part of the fundraising for the Halloween celebration since 1940, when the first button was created in Anoka County. In that year, the Halloween Committee created round wooden buttons painted orange with the words Halloween Capital Anoka in white around the edge, and the black silhouette of a witch flying on the broomstick in the middle. A safety pin was glued onto the back so that it could be worn. The witch's design was based on the Halloween logo design commissioned by Anoka drugstore owner Bernard J. Wheat, or Bernard J. White, as it were. A few years earlier, in the late 1930s, the design was created by local artist Alice Rovick and was subsequently used for many Anoka Halloween-related items, including large sidewalk medallions, buttons, and more. In their first year, the buttons were sold for 10 cents, each having cost the Halloween Costume Committee 6 cents each to make. The Anoka Union newspaper reported they sold 500 by October 16, 1940, and ultimately 1,107 buttons were sold that year. A new design featuring an owl was chosen for the 1941 buttons. This was the first year that the Halloween Committee ran a contest for the button designs, which Miss Leg Brown won. Button prices increased to 25 cents that year, and 1,400 were sold. Due to World War II, there were no official Halloween celebrations in 1942 and 1943. By late 1944, however, the United States and Allied nations were more clearly on the road to victory, and an official celebration was held again in Anoka that year. Under the auspices of New Junior Association of Commerce, a button was sold that year, but it had not described anywhere today. The Anoka County Chamber of Commerce identifies it as being identical to the 1940 button. So is it possible the first design was released for ease that year? In 1945, a paper tag with a string to hang it was sold in place of a button, and Anoka Area Chamber of Commerce has the only known remaining example of the tag. The first year to feature a conventional pin track button, as we think of them today, was in 1946, which was celebrating the 25th anniversary of Anoka Halloween. The evidence that we have indicates that no buttons were sold in 1947 or 1948. Beginning in 1949, buttons were sold annually. The Anoka High School football team played a regularly scheduled football home game in 1948. It happened to fall on Halloween. Starting the following year, 1949, was retroactively dubbed the first annual Pumpkin Bowl, and beginning in 1949, the buttons were sold as a fundraiser for Anoka Halloween, but served as a free admission to the Pumpkin Bowl game. For this reason, the 1949 and 1950 buttons feature an oval football shape with black and orange designs. The design turned to round buttons once more in 1951, but overall designs did not change much for the next 2.5 decades due to the connection with the Pumpkin Bowl. Always orange and black, the buttons featured a limited variety of designs: the witch silhouette, football players, and football players with jack-o'-lantern heads, with some designs being reused over multiple years. In 1954 and 65, the buttons feature the date of October 32nd as a way to keep in the Halloween spirit when the scheduled game fell on November 1st. The 1975 button broke away from the previous alt-orange and black pattern with a yellow background, but it was also the last Halloween button sold as admission to the Pumpkin Bowl. After that year, it was determined the legal issues prevented the school district from providing button sale money to Anoka Halloween, so the direct connection was ended. The Pumpkin Bowl football game continues to be a scheduled part of Anoka Halloween festivities. In 1976, the button features the phrase, "Keep the pumpkin," which may have been a protest against the district's decision. Button designs began to vary more widely once they were no longer serving as admission to the football game. The Halloween Committee returned to the 1941 practice of holding a contest for a button design, which continues to the present day. For more information, please visit anokacountyhistory.org. Thank you again for joining me in the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast for this short, albeit very sweet candy version and Halloween spectacular. I'll be seeing you again very soon for more Halloween fun. Until we see each other again, mon ami, au revoir.